Welcome back to Bleav in the Broncos on the Bleav Network. That is Bri Maestas. I am Patrick Chiotti. We're the hosts of this show, and today's a very special episode because it is schedule release day. It's the favorite day of the social media year. All the great videos get to come out, and we get to see who is playing who and when, how many primetime games each team is going to get. And Bri, no surprise, the Kansas City Chiefs once again have the most primetime games of any team in the NFL with 7. Denver Broncos sitting at 4. Bri, this schedule for the Broncos, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the schedule release video. We're going to talk about the videos around the league. But this schedule, just looking at it, my gut reaction, I was very happy with how this schedule is laid out. How do you feel about it? And what was your gut reaction to seeing the Broncos 2025 schedule?
Yeah, I think it was tough but fair, right? I think the early stretch is totally survivable, and then it gets a little bit dicier towards when the Broncos are going to have to prove themselves, right? We gotta know whether or not there's room for error here. Are we really back as a franchise? So I think they've got momentum through the bye week. It's an interesting concept when you start looking at it, like, is this an easy schedule? I don't ever want to get caught up in that. And I know we'll talk
Right.
about, what are the games that are going to be giving us misgivings here on a late Wednesday night. But oh, look at you! You have it all ready to go.
I know, right? It looks good, and I agree with you. I think the tough stretches, you got to have them in there, but I don't feel like there's too many. Like I don't feel like it was last year where we kind of had that gauntlet, especially towards the end of the season. I think that this is going to be a much more favorable schedule, and in terms of travel, it's not terrible. So let's just walk through it together here. Week 1, they get Cam Ward. Welcome to the NFL. Here's the top defense in the league. I'm pretty excited to see Cam go against the Broncos defense here. Afternoon games should be a beautiful day in Denver, Colorado. And I think that this is going to be a really exciting.
At home, new energy. The Titans are kind of in flux. It's a great way to start 1-0.
Absolutely. Week 2, going to Indianapolis. Weeks 2 and 3, both on the road. They're going to be in Indianapolis and then in Los Angeles to face off with the Chargers in week 3. Definitely both winnable games. We're not going to do any record predictions in this episode. We're going to save that for a later episode, but definitely 2 winnable games. The Charger series every year seems like it can be split. I don't like a clean sweep by the Chargers.
Yeah, I could see them splitting, the division, but with a new coaching staff, SoFi has not been really kind to Denver, right? They're still trying to find their footing with Harbaugh, but I'm not going to get too cocky.
Yeah, we're going to see Omarion Hampton early in the season. That's okay. But week 4, they come back. This is the game that I think a lot of people are going to be looking forward to. The Bengals in week 4. Normally, they don't start out the season very hot, and this is a Monday night game, their first primetime game of the season. Joe Burrow coming to Denver. I think this is going to be a really, really fun matchup. Could possibly be a shootout. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, it's a big stage and it's a big moment for Bo Nix. I think the Bengals they're hard to pin down. Every year it feels like they go against what the national narrative it is, and it's fully dependent on if Burrow, remains healthy throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think early on, the last few years, the early season has not been kind to Cincinnati and Zach Taylor, and maybe they're trying to switch it up. Maybe they're trying to right that ship, starting out better than they have been in recent years. So that game is going to be a lot of fun. We get to see Jamar Chase versus Pat Surtain. Riley Moss gets his revenge game. My goodness, I know he's got that one circled. And we'll get to see. I think Jahdae Barron would be a key player in that game, because if you have that guy last year when Moss is hurt, I think you feel a little more comfortable going into that game later in the season. But I know that's going to be a big one that Riley has circled. Weeks 5 and 6, Bri, on the road, but one of those games is going to be across the pond. They're going to be playing the Jets in week 6 in London, the Eagles week 5 in Philadelphia. Both of those games, I think we can't sleep on them too much. The Eagles are obviously going to be a really tough matchup, Super Bowl champions. It's going to be I think that's going to be a great game for Bo Nix to go up against that defense and Vic Fangio. And then, of course, the Jets with their new coaching staff, they're going to look hopefully different this year. But I hope that the London trip and being on the road already doesn't hinder them too much going into that final stretch before the bye.
I like this stretch because it's a measuring yourself type of like middle of the season without being the middle of the season. You got a little bit of a distraction when it comes to traveling across the pond. Hopefully, no high knees though. When we talk about the types of traps that are being set here, the Jets are super unpredictable. Like I predict them to catch on fire at some point and not in the good way. There's no like it's going to be heat loss, it's going to be dumpster fire levels, and eventually they'll prove me wrong. But I don't think this is the year. But the Eagles are tough. You got still physicality and depth, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it necessarily, but I do think it's interesting that when you cover week 7, it's not a bye week, right? They have to go and face the Giants. So, and an interesting. It almost feels like this is where they're going to have to prove where they're at in the season, and it's a little early to do so, right? Week 8 and 9 seems a little bit more particular there, but maybe it's a good sign.
Yeah, and I think you're going to get a good test with Dallas and Houston. Obviously, having to go to Houston is going to be tough, but this team has been playing extremely well. With D'Amico Ryans. Who knows what the Cowboys are going to look like? That's going to be a complete and total crapshoot. But having those 2 home games against the Giants and then Dallas, and then having to travel to Houston, it's going to be a good test, especially after coming back from London. But then week 10, they also have, I Bleav this is a short week as well, going into that game with the Raiders. Thursday night football, another primetime game, Bri. Ashton Jeanty, first time they're going to see him. And then week 11, 2 back-to-back divisional games. This is going to be an interesting stretch before the bye.
It is, and I think Peyton's going to really want that one up front. It's Thursday night. It's a big stage. It's at home. You know, we're obviously not doing record predictions, but I have a hard time not being like, this is a must win.
Right.
This is a must win.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think that has to be, especially with how you've played against the Raiders at home over the recent years. Obviously getting the win last year is big, but you've got to be able to win both of those games, especially with the Chiefs before the bye week. After the bye week, Bri, doesn't get any easier. You've got Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in week 13 on Sunday Night Football, their only Sunday Night Football game of the year. And then they have to go to Vegas in week 14, Packers at home in week 15. This is an interesting 3-game stretch. I think that this stretch is where we see the Raiders maybe start to click a little bit more. And so they could be a little bit more dangerous. Pete Carroll's there. They've got Geno. I think things will start to get rolling. They usually do around this time. Jaden Daniels is a wild card in almost every single game. He's going to play lights out, but it's going to be either up or down. So I'm not going to hold out. I'm not going to say, they're not going to win that game. But it's going to be that's going to be fireworks for sure. And then Packers week 15 at home. I think that's probably one of the games that I'm really looking forward to. Jordan Love in Mile High, 2 really fun offenses to watch. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it's a key late season. It's where teams are in the playoff hunt. It's where
Hmm.
you start to really see what they're made of. The national game aside with the Commanders, like the Broncos should be refreshed at that point. The Raiders are a nice little sprinkle in there. I think it's interesting, just of note, right, that Kansas City isn't it isn't either bookend, the start or the finish. So I kind
Yeah.
of like that they're existing in that sandwich there in the middle. So you got Raiders, Packers, and then you jump into week 16, which could be having some implication or another for both teams
Yeah.
trying to restart.
Yeah, week 16. Honestly, that last 3 game stretch, 16, 17, and 18, Jacksonville at home, Kansas City at Kansas City on Christmas. This is a Thursday night football game on Christmas. And then Chargers at home in week 18. Both of those final 2 weeks are going to have major implications. But week 16, I view week 16 right now as a must win. That has to be a must win game. Honestly, 15 and 16, both got to win those games going into those final 2 divisional games. So, Bri, looking at this schedule, we're going to take the divisional games out of it. We know that those count, Chris Harris used to say those count as 2. So they still are important. But I want to know, what's your biggest non-divisional matchup for the Denver Broncos in this schedule this year?
Yeah, you mentioned the Packers late in the season. I like that one a lot, but I was thinking more of the Commanders, right? Like
Yeah.
you're going to have to go in, prove yourself against a really hungry, young, motivated team. They're kind of in the same I don't want to say like same levels, right? But the same atmosphere of trying to like really figure out what they have and what they have in
Mm-hmm.
place. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for Bo Nix to really rise to the occasion. It's an away game. It's Sunday Night Football. It's going to have a lot of implications for the season moving forward. So I think that one's going to be the one. I think it's week 13. I'm trying to look at 2
Yeah,
screens right
it
now.
is.
So because the text in front of me is too small for my old eyes. But it's late November game. It'll be really interesting to see where we're at, right? Like I think
Yeah,
as Broncos country learns how to be winners again, I think it's really cool that we can start talking about meaningful, impactful football in the end of November and onward.
I know. And that was, that was something that we talked about last year was they need to be playing meaningful football late in the season. And I think this schedule gives them the opportunity to. Obviously it's always just game by game, 1 game at a time. But I agree with you. I think the Commanders are probably the non-divisional matchup that I'm looking forward to the most. Jaden Daniels versus Bo Nix, that whole conversation, the offensive rookie of the year conversation, them being in the same draft class, they're always going to be pitted against each other. But I think this is also another layer. Dan Quinn, who was in the running to be the Broncos head coach, versus Sean Payton, the man who ultimately got the job. Uh, Still a divisive argument within Broncos country. Should they have hired Dan Quinn? Who knows? But this gives them an opportunity to see, is Dan Quinn really that dude? Or, is Sean Payton going to get the upper hand? I think this matchup is the one that everybody's going to have their eyes on. There's a reason they gave it a Sunday Night Football marquee. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think one of the other ones, obviously, is going to be the Eagles. Just
Mm-hmm.
seeing Vic Fangio go up against Sean Payton, two just old heads in football, just bashing their skulls together like we're going to try and figure this thing out one way or another. This might be a low scoring game. If the Broncos can stop the run this year, this might be a very low scoring game. I'm talking like Jets 10-7 last year. Like it's going to be messy.
No. I can't believe we're doing it again. We're mentioning the Jets game when you know there's a
Ah,
referendum on that. Pat, I don't want to derail, right? Because I don't like to take control of the situation, but you mentioned a very important narrative, a storyline there with 2 rookie QBs coming from the same class. What's
mhm.
another one that you're looking from that's already kind of writing itself as you're looking at the schedule? Is it the Giants
Oh,
game? Is it that easy? Are we just gonna
I mean, come on.
skirt
No,
around that?
I think like look, if we're looking at the quarterbacks that are on this schedule, is Russ and we talked about that today. Is Russ even going to be playing in that game? I don't think so. I don't think Russ is playing in this game. I think it's either Jameis Winston or it's Jackson Dart at this point.
Yeah.
Because by week 4, you should know what you have in Russ. They played Justin Fields last year, which they're going to have to play him in London. But they played him last year with the Steelers, so Russ didn't get to play then. And it's at home. So is he going to just go to Brian Dable and be like, I want to play in this game. I don't care if you have me listed as the 4th quarterback on the depth chart. I'm taking the first snap of this game just so I can prove that I'm still Russell Wilson. And Brian Dable is going to look at him and say, no. So I think I think that's one that's probably, but like I want to see Cam Ward. Like I really liked Cam Ward throughout the process. I definitely want to see this defense go up against him and see what he can really bring, because it's going to be tough. Those moments are really really hard. You know. Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence. There's some good quarterbacks on this list. Dak Prescott's going to be back. So it's going to be interesting to see. And Joe Burrow is always a great watch. Bri, I do want to talk about, the Broncos have 4 primetime games, but the London game is one, and we kind of touched on it, but I want to delve into this a little bit more. With them having to play the very next week, 7 days later, coming back after that game, are you worried about that? Do you think that 3-game stretch right there, Giants, Cowboys, and Texans, do you think that the London game could potentially affect all 3 of those games or just one?
Oh, it would be really weird if it kind of extended, but it's the whole thought process of a butterfly flapping its wings, right?
Yeah,
Like, does that
right.
have long-standing impact? Because you've got jet lag meets gangrene in London, right? So international games, they're already tricky. It's more concerning to me that given the travel demands and the adjustment that it takes for jet lag, after a big matchup against the Eagles, I
Mhm.
I don't I know there's a push, right? There's like a record-setting amount of outside of the U.S. games this season, and
Yeah.
I know what the NFL is doing, right? They're really driving the point home, but not giving these teams bye weeks is a sense of, okay, I see where you're going with this. Then it's just going to make it a slog. I was worried
Yeah.
a little bit about the Giants game then being overlooked, like we just being like, oh no, it'll be fine. It's the Giants, and then
Mhm.
getting kind of I don't want to say
Sidetracked.
like not sidetracked. It's, when you like get T-boned when you're not paying attention
Sideswiped.
and sideswipe. Thank you. English is my first language. I'm just struggling today. And the idea would be then you have to face a Dallas team that you're always kind of scratching your head at. Like, what is
Yeah.
Jerry Jones doing and why is he making these decisions? But they kind of are not they're not doing so poorly now, right? They're making decisions that can make them a tricky team. And then
Hmm.
you have the Houston Texans, who, maybe they had a little bit of regression there with the sophomore slump and CJ Stroud, but they're not a team to be discounted. So I
Yeah.
could see it being, if it does poorly, it's going to be a cascading snowball effect where they'll
Hmm.
continue to struggle, which that's not what you want to see going into week 10 against an AFC West opponent like the Raiders. But
Hmm.
yeah, I like what you're setting up here, because it's got my wheels churning on what's the worst case scenario and how is that absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
Because yes, you worry about that every single time. I worry more so about watching the game at 7:30 in the morning.
I will be awake. I will be awake, and I will have my fish and chips, and maybe even a lager. Who knows?
Wow.
It'll be game time over there. So, Bri, before we get out of here, home games in Denver. For those who have never been to a Denver Broncos home football game, it is an ethereal experience. It is one of the greatest experiences in all of American professional sports. Um, which home game are you looking forward to the most, and why? And for those who don't know, Bri is a season ticket holder. She is at the games, spreading her witchy woo woo all across the opposing quarterbacks. Which home game are you most looking forward to?
We won't highlight how long I've had the season tickets because then we might blame me for some things. But it's got to be Monday Night Football against the Bengals
Yeah.
in week 4. I didn't realize that last year's Thursday night football, I think it was Thursday night against the Browns, was going to be just it blew every single expectation and was the coolest game I've ever been to, and I've been
Yeah.
to some cool games. So I'm hoping Monday Night Football in nice weather. Like, that is a game I'm really looking forward to because I'm going to be in shorts and a hoodie and I'm just going to be loving life at that point. So very much so looking forward to it. And because I don't partake in any of the other football rituals, I will be ready to go to work come Tuesday.
I have been to several Broncos games in my life, and I've been to several Bengals Broncos games in my life. My first one, listeners of the show know that was my first ever Broncos game, but I also went to the Bengals game in the Super Bowl year, which was also a Monday night game that they won in overtime. So that is probably the home game that I'm looking forward to the most. It's always a fun time when the Bengals come to town. Joe Burrow is absolutely must-see TV. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all those guys are going to be amazing. But after the game that we saw last year in Cincinnati, I am so excited to watch these two teams go at it again. Bo Nix has that energy. Joe Burrow always has that energy. I think that this is going to be a really, really fun matchup and a really, really good game. I'm glad that the Broncos are getting a little more love for primetime. Maybe we'll see a game flexed, who knows? But for primetime games this year, one of them being that Bengals game, I'm really excited. Bri, any last thoughts on this schedule? Any other team that you wish that you would have seen? I know we get the opponents earlier, but is there a team that you wanted to see this year?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. And I always think that, like, I love a good Patriots matchup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially now that
Love it.
they've sort of like turned a corner on
Right?
what they were doing. Big Josh Dobbs fan. So like, just know, listen, I know he's not running the ship over there, but I like what they're doing now. It's like they kind of figured out how to have fun again while they play the sport of football, which
Yeah.
it's been a while.
Vrabel will do that.
Yeah, I think on the adverse of that, I was like, do we really have to play the Jets again? Like, is
I know.
it just never going away?
No. No.
That's just
It's never going away.
move them into the conference then. If you're going to make it like this, let's see them twice a year so I can figure out who they're going to scapegoat this season. Did you see their schedule release? It was just a list. They didn't even do a video. They just phoned it in.
PDF. Just PDF.
It's Robert Saleh's fault.
Right. The guy who's not even there anymore. It's his fault.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question for another show. Which team, if the Jets were to move into the AFC West, which team are we kicking out? And why do we already know that it's the Raiders? Bri, this has been a lot of fun. Always love schedule release day. We will be back in our next episode with a prediction for each game. These episodes are always a good time because it's just a wild guess. However, last season's prediction for myself was literally spot on. I think I predicted 10-7. A lot of people predict 10-7, but I predicted 10-7, and I was so close to having every game right. I was so close. I was only like, I had 2 games that were flip flopped, so I was close. But this episode is going to be a lot of fun. Bri and I are going to break down each matchup. We're going to give our predictions, and we'll do that throughout the season as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Schedule release day, always a good time. Broncos, please, next year, let's do a little bit better on the video. Bri, thank you so much for joining us as always. Make sure you subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Make sure that you subscribe to the Bleav Network YouTube as well. And go Broncos.
Go Broncos.